Rain drizzled steadily over the shining streets of Manhattan as Anthony Remington stepped out of his town car in front of the Grand Meridian Hotel. The building stood proudly on Fifth Avenue, its marble facade gleaming under the city lights. Doormen in crisp uniforms hovered under the grand archway, welcoming guests with warm smiles. Anthony adjusted the collar of his raincoat and grabbed his briefcase. He was dressed simply today, black jeans, a wool turtleneck, and a dark trench coat. His beard was full, his dreadlocks pulled back neatly. He looked more like an artist than the CEO of a billion-dollar hospitality empire. And that, as he was about to find out, was a problem. As he approached the entrance, the older doorman, Charles, held out a white-gloved hand. "Sir, can I help you?" he asked, scanning Anthony from head to toe. Anthony nodded. "I'm checking in." Charles hesitated, stepping in front of the entrance. "This entrance is for registered guests only. Deliveries are around back." Anthony blinked, stunned. "I'm not making a delivery. My name is Anthony Remington. I have a reservation." Charles didn't budge. "I'm going to need to see some ID." Anthony sighed and pulled his wallet from his coat. The doorman took a glance, his face paling slightly, but still full of disbelief. "Mr. Remington," he muttered. "Yes. As in Remington Properties." "As in the man who owns this hotel," Anthony replied, voice calm but cool. Before Charles could stammer a response, the hotel manager, a woman named Lisa Darrow, burst through the revolving door. "Mr. Remington." "I'm so sorry," she said breathlessly. "I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow." "Please, come inside." Anthony said nothing to the doorman as he walked in. But his eyes, disappointed, piercing, said everything. Upstairs in the executive lounge, Anthony declined a drink and sat at the corner desk. He opened his laptop, eyes scanning hotel data, guest reviews, and staffing logs. This wasn't his first time encountering profiling. But to experience it at his own hotel, his flagship location, was unforgivable. He clicked open a folder labeled Equity Initiative. A new plan began to form. The next day, Anthony called a meeting with all hotel staff, from bellboys to management. In the ballroom, hundreds gathered, curious. "Yesterday," Anthony began, standing on the stage, "I was denied entry into this hotel because I didn't look like the kind of person who belongs here." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Some of you might think this isn't your problem. But when the person who signs your paycheck gets profiled in his own lobby, it becomes everybody's problem." He paused. "So here's what we're doing. Starting today, we launch the Belong Initiative. Every employee will undergo training in equity, inclusion, and unconscious bias. Every location will be audited for diversity practices. And promotions will reflect not just performance, but values." Some clapped. Others looked uncomfortable. But no one said a word against him. Over the next 6 months, Anthony's initiative transformed the Grand Meridian. Diverse candidates were hired into leadership roles. A guest feedback system was introduced to flag incidents of discrimination. Charles, the doorman, quietly resigned. Meanwhile, Anthony did interviews. Not to shame individuals, but to spotlight the invisible lines drawn every day by assumptions. "You can own the penthouse and still be sent to the alley," he told the New York Times. The story went viral. Shares in Remington Properties surged. Other hotel chains took notice. 1 year later, Anthony walked back through the same entrance of the Grand Meridian. This time, a young doorman, Jamal, a recent hire from the Bronx, smiled brightly. "Welcome home, Mr. Remington." Anthony nodded. "It is now." But his journey wasn't over. Anthony began touring all his hotels, often undercover, to experience them from the eyes of guests who didn't carry wealth or titles. He saw kindness, but also negligence. Inclusion, but also ignorance. He began publishing anonymous travel essays under the name The Invisible Guest. These essays stirred the hospitality world, making headlines in both travel and business outlets. Hoteliers scrambled to self-correct. Competitors copied the Belong Initiative, but lacked Anthony's authenticity. People started guessing who the invisible guest was. Rumors spread. In one city, he stayed in his hotel anonymously and was again nearly denied service at the rooftop lounge. The waiter said he didn't meet the dress code, despite wearing a designer outfit. Anthony didn't reveal himself. He left, quietly marked it down, and followed up weeks later. The waiter was gone, replaced by a younger staff trained through the Belong initiative. Anthony expanded the program globally. He created Belong certification, which hotels had to earn annually, like a Michelin star but for inclusion. Some failed. Some improved. Others resisted. But slowly, things changed. He spoke at universities. Mentored young Black entrepreneurs. Created a scholarship for hospitality students from underrepresented backgrounds. His hotel became not just a place to stay, but a symbol of what inclusion could look like when powered by leadership with lived experience. Years later, a best-selling book hit shelves, The Penthouse and the Alley, Lessons from a Reluctant Revolutionary. Anthony Remington finally owned his story, revealing he was the invisible guest all along. The book became required reading in MBA programs and diversity training seminars. He never sued Charles. Never named names. But his quiet determination redefined an industry, and in the end, every guest who walked through the Grand Meridian's doors, regardless of their skin, status, or story, was greeted not with suspicion, but with, "Welcome. You belong here."